In this video, I want to have a look at the ethical responses to euthanasia. Euthanasia is the deliberate killing of a person for their own benefits. Now, euthanasia literally translates from the Greek as good death. So, it isn't completely seen as a wrong thing. We can have three types of euthanasia: voluntary, non-voluntary, and involuntary. Voluntary euthanasia is when the person is asking to die. Involuntary is when they're not in a position to ask, they want to die. Non-voluntary is when they don't want to die. Active and passive euthanasia are the two types of methods in which euthanasia can take place. Passive is when any treatment or medicine that the patient is reliant on is withdrawn from them, so it's supposed to be said as a more natural way of dying. Active euthanasia is when a drug or overdose or lethal injection is given in order to hasten and specifically end the life of the patient. So let's quickly go through now the different ethical responses to euthanasia. Utilitarianism. Firstly, act utilitarianism. Bentham would have been for it, because if we did this in the hedonic calculus, we would have come to find out that the amount of pleasure produced outweighs the pain if we commit euthanasia. Rule, on the other hand, with Mill, would probably agree, because he believed in the sovereignty of the individual and the individual's right to make choices. However, as we discussed in one of my earlier videos, Dr. Kevorkian, Dr. Death, as commonly known, his patient Thomas Hyde, his last patient, well, his mind was still functioning. He had a physical disability, the same one as Stephen Hawking's, and Mill would have disagreed with that, because a higher pleasure is a pleasure received from the mind, not the body. The body is a lower pleasure. So he would have worked out that actually this person could have got more pleasures in the future from their mind, and higher ones, not lower ones, and therefore the action might be wrong. But and Peter Singer, he is also similar to act utilitarianism. If it is a person's preference to die, then we will satisfy that by committing suicide. Then there is no problem with that. That would be because for Peter Singer, remember, is quality of life over sanctity of life. Sanctity of life was too old, he says, and it's all about the quality of life. And would you rather have somebody who's living the rest of their life in pain, or they just die, painless, with dignity, kind of thing? Kant, well, he obviously didn't have a view on this. It's a very ancient ethical theory. It would be hard to universalize that, euthanasia, everybody should commit euthanasia, because, that would be a contradiction. Everyone would be dead. And if we change the words to anybody who is terminally ill and wishes to die must commit euthanasia, it's still more kind of okay, but that's just to say that if you're really ill and you're not thinking straight and suddenly you got this wish to die, even if there's a chance of you surviving the future, but you just got this wish, that would mean that you could die, and that wouldn't be right either. There's no room, remember, in Kant for compassion, emotion, nothing. It's about duties. So whatever we do, it's got to be due to our duty to do so. So this whole thing, that quality of life, we should end the suffering, no, that's not happening with Kant. His last maxim, the kingdom of ends one, well, there's no sort of compliance for acting with nature. So euthanasia is going against nature, hence we should not do it. But then also, losing the will to live, using medicines and all that, that is also going against nature, but no one says anything to that. So you might be able to argue either way in that maxim. Then also the means to end one, are we using the patient as a means to an end, i.e. are we using them in order to end suffering, not just for them, but for the loved ones, for the whole society? But then again, we could say that euthanasia is showing that the person is an end in themselves. We're not, using them to keep them alive and think. We're just satisfying their wishes, and that's what they want. Because Kant does also stress that it's important that people can make their own decisions. They're moral, rational agents. However, I think Kant would basically be against this, because he clearly states one of the perfect duties which must be conducted all the time is do not commit suicide. Suicide falls into the similar range of euthanasia and is usually classed together. It's assisted suicide. That's what it is. So he would probably be against that. Natural law too would be against that, because sanctity of life, God gave life, life is a gift and God takes it away. They're very strong links with Catholicism. It's absolute rule. We can't just change it because the person is so terminally ill. No, it's God's wishes. God will do what he likes. Also, we have a precept, do not kill, not do not kill, sorry, to live the supreme good. From that we can have the secondary precept, do not kill, do not abort, do not commit euthanasia, because they all are kind of going against the purpose of life, which is to live, so it would be wrong. However, remember, there is casuistry and there is a principle of double effect. So if a doctor intentionally, with good intentions, gives a patient an overdose of morphine in order to get rid of the pain, but death is just a secondary action which happens, then obviously that would not be a problem, but it would have to be done in a particular way. But generally it's against euthanasia too. Situation ethics is actually in for euthanasia kind of thing, because remember, it has to be personal for situation. I think the Christian God is personal. We look at every situation personally. We look at the pragmatic. So if somebody is terminally ill, and we really do feel compassion. Remember, it's love, and here's the most loving thing to do. And pragmatically, they got to save costs and all these things, keeping the person alive. It is the best thing to do. That's what situationists would say. It's a relativist, so we're not going to have, and rules like do not kill, they do not exist for situationists, because they look at every situation individually. They're a relativist, and they would probably be for euthanasia, because it is generally the most loving thing to do. That's why people do it, because it's out of love. You don't want to see your loved one go through pain. Christian ethics, moving on. In the Bible, in the book of Job, it says God gives and God takes away, so humans have no right to take away. We are created in the image of God, and the body is the home of the holy temple. Sanctity of life, life is sacred. Roman Catholics, like natural law, definitely no. Do not kill, abortion, euthanasia seen as murder, but pain-killing drugs, like let's say morphine or something, you can give them with good intention, but you can't give it like overdose with good intention. We're going to get rid of it. You give just enough, because you can't have that byproduct like in natural law, that death is just a byproduct. Church of England, again, sanctity of life, life is sacred, euthanasia, big no-no. Salvation Army, whereas Mill said is sovereignty of the individual, as Salvation said sovereignty of God, because God has sovereign over life and death. God is supreme, so we have no right to interfere. The Orthodox Church, again, it's murder. They would use the story of Job where God tested him again and again, and would say, just like that, you're being tested. They would say, believe in God, have strength, but they would never allow it. So that's just the different ethical responses to euthanasia. Thank you for watching. Please watch my blog.